And on the line, I welcome to the programme Simon Calvert from the Christian Institute. Good morning, Simon.
Good morning.
Great deal of emotion running fairly high on the programme this morning. This is in the light of the first ever advertisement, which will be giving information about abortion. It's going to be broadcast on Channel 4 on Monday night at 10:10. At the Christian Institute, what's your response to that news?
Well, I confess I haven't had the privilege of hearing all the discussion this morning, but I'm sure that what it has demonstrated is that abortion is a very, very controversial issue.
Yes.
And so it does not seem that it's appropriate to deal with something as controversial as that in the form of a television advert. We're not talking about selling soap powder here. We're talking about a subject which opens up some of the deepest possible divisions between people, some of the greatest philosophical and ethical and indeed religious discussion. And it really does seem... I think many people will find it surprising, not to say shocking, the idea that a subject like that is going to be dealt with in the context of a television advert, which by definition is designed to promote something, to advocate a particular side of an argument, to encourage people to make a particular choice. I just think that most people, whatever view they take on the subject of abortion, will think that a television advert is not the right context for dealing with that.
Do you know what the content of the advert is going to be?
We have only seen stills, haven't we? I've only seen what other people will have seen in the media and stills from the advert, which suggest that it's about encouraging people to contact Marie Stopes International for advice if they find themselves with an unwanted pregnancy. And what we know is that Marie Stopes obviously is one of the country's leading abortion providers. It has an income of about £60 million a year from providing abortion services. I'm told roughly half of which is from the NHS. Okay,
and
so the service that they're encouraging people to take up is their abortion services, presumably.
It's important to point out, and as a gentleman from the Christian Institute, you'll want me to tell the truth, of course, it's important to point out it's a charity and it's a non-profit making organisation. So it's not as if the executives of Marie Stopes are going home and purchasing mansions abroad and private jets with the proceeds of these abortions. They're providing abortions on behalf of the NHS.
Of course,
I don't suggest that. They're a non-profit making charity. But Simon...
But there will be people out of a job, of course, if they lose income. But
you've just said that it's not. They're not selling washing powder. They're not selling baking powder, and it's quite right. They're not. But neither are they providing the kind of advert which says roll up, 2 a penny, bog off, get one termination, another one free for a friend, brand new, fabulous abortions to be had. Nothing of the kind. The word abortion is not going to be used, even mentioned. The women are not going to say, "Hello, I have an unwanted pregnancy." Even they're simply going to say it's something like, "Oh, I'm late. In other words, my period is late. I'm late." Well,
of course,
you might want to phone this number. So it's not a kind of pile 'em high, sell 'em cheap, big strapline, catchy logo kind of an ad. It's not that type of thing.
I'm sure they will be very careful because it is such a controversial subject. But it has to be admitted that Marie Stopes is an abortion provider. They receive payment for each abortion that they provide. They indeed receive payment for counselling. According to their website, I think it's somewhere between £35 and £80 for telephone counselling. They do receive money for the services that they provide, and they want to encourage people to take up their services.
Well, let's repeat.
Impartial.
They're a charity and a non-profit making organisation. You make them sound like a market stall, which is not what they are, and it's not what they're doing. And they provide the abortions to English women, not Irish women who have to pay, but to English women without charge. They don't charge you for it. So your sort of insistence on mentioning the money and their 6 pieces of silver seems to me to be fairly unfair.
I don't intend to make them sound like a market stall.
Well, I'm not sure what you're intending,
but I only intend to point out that they do receive payment for the
and I keep repeating they're a charity
provide.
And they're not making a profit out of this. So,
but they're not
the fact
impartial,
that they receive payment from the NHS is they're providing a service for women who say they want it. They believe in choice.
Let's move, if I may, the discussion on to what happens next if the broadcaster allows this advert to be aired. Then we have had an advert from one side of the abortion debate, from an organisation which supports abortion. What about the other side of the debate? Marie Stopes is heavily subsidised by taxpayer cash, as indeed is Channel 4. It has to be said that the various pro-life, pregnancy crisis counselling centres do not receive public money. They are vastly underfunded, but will they be allowed to advertise their services? Will those who oppose abortion be allowed to take advertisements to put their side of the argument? And really,
have you tried to do that?
Well, is that something that we want? I think there has to be a discussion about whether we want to take the controversial issue of abortion and have it slugged out in the marketplace in the form of television adverts. Is that what we want? Maybe that will come, but I'm not sure that people are ready for that.
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, if you're watching this advert on Monday night and you're happily married and you've already got your children and you're not pregnant, you will watch it and it will float right over the top of your head, because when you see these women saying, "Oh my goodness, I'm late, oh dear, my period hasn't arrived," you'll think, "Well, mine has and I'm fine," or you'll think, "Well, I'm a pensioner, so I'm postmenopausal, I can't get pregnant anyway," or you'll think, this doesn't apply to me. But if at the time of watching it you are a woman who finds herself confronting an unplanned pregnancy and you decide to call the number offered, what's wrong with that? Why is that a bad thing? It's not as if they can make people who don't want to call, just as they can't make you eat Cocoa Pops if your preference is Frosties. They can't make you do it. We're all adult viewers. We choose whether we buy an insurance policy, a certain kind of car, a particular sort of salad dressing, opal fruits made to make your mouth water, or if we don't. We don't have to do it.
There's two sides to your question. The first is the reaction from people who are not themselves, women who are not currently in a situation where they have an unplanned pregnancy. But there are many other people watching who do have strong views either way on this subject. And so we are cracking open a controversial ethical and political issue in the form of a television advert. And secondly, there are women out there who are pregnant unexpectedly. They don't know what to do. Oughtn't they at least to have a choice of people to talk to?
Well, don't they have a choice?
If they telephone Marie Stopes International, they're telephoning an organisation that performs abortions, clearly supports the right to abortion. Some have said, women have said, who have been to different abortion providers, that when they get there, and I'm speaking in general terms, not about Marie Stopes, that when they get there, they feel as if they're sort of put on an abortion conveyor belt, that they're not really presented with the alternatives. Nobody talks about, for example, adoption. Nobody talks to them about the risks of abortion, the dangers of future infertility. Nobody talks to them about the trauma and the grief that they feel after an abortion.
That they might feel. Because I've been taking calls all morning from women who felt none of that, who felt an overwhelming emotion was relief. A great deal of relief and nothing else, who then have gone on at a later date when they're in proper relationships, when the time is right for them, when they feel they can love a child and give a child the kind of life that they want to give a child, gone on to have families with tremendous love and great success and happiness all around. And they're not plagued by terrible regret, and they don't find that they can't conceive, and they don't find any of those things. They've been calling all morning. Not exclusively, but they have been calling all morning.
Well, we all want to justify the decisions that we have made. That is human nature. We all do that. But I'm speaking about the women for whom that is not the experience, and there are very many of them. I think that far too little is said about those women. Far too few people care about those women. Far too few people speak up for those women. Why is it that when we talk of women's rights, we only talk about the right of women to have an abortion, women who want an abortion, women who feel no problems after having an abortion? But what about those women who do? Why does talk of women's rights not encompass the rights of those women to be heard?
Well, who's stopping them being heard?
Well, there is.
Why can't they be heard?
There is a one-sided sort of approach to many of these discussions, and here we have a prime example. The leading abortion provider is being given many tens of millions of pounds a year by the NHS. It's taxpayers' money. The other side of the debate does not get anything like that kind of money from public funding. We have a partly public-funded broadcaster who is effectively taking sides on one side of the culture war over abortion, I think that those of us who do speak out for the other side of the argument do find it hard to be heard.
But is it taking sides to run an advertisement? Because if you run an advertisement for one kind of sofa over another kind of sofa just because they pay more money for the slot, it doesn't mean that effectively the public service partly endorsed broadcaster prefers that kind of sofa.
But I think we have agreed.
Simon,
that
I'm going to conclude this just because we've got
sofas.
so many. Well, if it's not, then I'm not sure why everybody's so worried about it. But thank you so much for the call.
Thank you.